Welcome to the Spire Directors Commentary Podcast, recorded by Grant Howitt and Chris Taylor. Following a successful Kickstarter campaign, we agreed to record commentary for each chapter of the Spire RPG, a fantasy punk game about insurrection, oppression, and horror, and release it to our backers. We wanted to talk about the decisions that led us to design Spire the way we did and show our working as best as possible. What you are about to listen to is a podcast made up of those files, arranged into blocks an hour or so long. We encourage you to start from episode 1 and move forward from there. Districts and factions of Order. Order's been something which we struggle with a little bit because it mainly just felt like something there had to be.
Yeah, just like we need an antagonist faction, the Order, laws, etc.
Yeah, and so we did a bit of we wrote a lot of the other sections of the game, and like we imagined into being, I suppose, the other sections of the game first, and this was very loose. But the main thing which developed is the City Guard, and I've got to say I really love Adrian's outfits for the City Guard.
Yeah, their uniforms are wonderful.
They're well dishonoured, mate. I really like what we've done with that, and also the fact that they've all got cool haircuts.
Yes,
but we wanted to make them a bit more human,
so to speak.
We wanted to make them, unlike that's the thing. I imagine there are a few human City Guard, but we wanted to make the Guard. We want to humanise. We wanted to make them people. So, like, the majority of the City Guard are probably someone you know, or someone who like you know their mum.
Yeah.
If they're in a neighbourhood, and I think it was that twist which made them more interesting to me, because it's not just some faceless mook; it's your mum's friend's son, and that for me presents a bit more of a challenge. Because
like we did sort of originally have them as faceless judges, essentially.
Yeah,
and that just didn't work.
Well, and I think like, we've got the paladins for that. We've got there's more than enough sort of conservative state badasses to put in here, and certainly like if you want the guards to be absolute badasses and absolute cruel, unthinking, absolutely fine, you can do that. But it's a bit more fun to have them run off and cry when they get hurt, because that's what people do. And that interests me. And also like the laws of Spire we mention in here, like what do we have here? What's the name of the thing? A warrior poet and a calligrapher attorney who are at one point married and wrote the laws, and now they use the legal charter of the city as a battleground for their old disputes, just to sort of get around the fact that we didn't want to write down every single law of Spire,
which would have been tedious to read.
Yeah, and not to mention write.
Yeah.
So basically, if the Elfir wants something to be illegal, it's illegal. They can always find a reason to arrest you. It's more about keeping your head down.
And like we've brought up specific laws when they matter, like the fact that Knights of the North Docks are allowed to carry bladed weapons.
Yeah, D6 weapons are illegal. D6 and up.
Yep.
I think that it's a pretty broad category to have that, but I think that lets us, because it's always kind of challenging as well, like having weapons in a city, like whenever you play a traditional game of a traditional role-playing game that isn't Spire. And so it was fun to have okay, you can carry D3 weapons, you can carry weapons which are considered civilian. And I suppose in the terms I'm thinking, that's the sort of things which we in England could own. Like we can own bats and knives and stuff, and if it's a whacking great sword or a rifle, then you need a license for that, or you're just simply not allowed.
Yeah,
and that seemed like the easiest way to do it.
Plus, it gives you more opportunities for clandestine weapon shipping and acquiring those armaments, etc.
Yeah, I think my favourite fact about that is it was in the Russian during the Russian Revolution, they became famous for carrying sawed-off rifles. Because rifles are fairly easy to make and manufacture, and there's a lot of them because they get given out to the military, but they're huge, and so you can't really sneak them around, and not carbines, but sawn-off rifles, which you can barely aim. And I really like sawn-off rifles as a concept ever since, God, what was it, Helsing? Heather
Yeah.
Helsing. That guy had pistol grip M1 Garand's, which is that's the World War II infantry weapon, I want to say, for the Americans.
I think so.
Anyway, we're getting a bit gun nerds here. We've got the notable locations as well. We had Valoran Standard, which has been knocking around for ages, and then we figured we probably need to have some other ones.
Yes.
And like with these, something which we haven't done too often in the fiction setting. I think with the fiction setting, what I wanted to do was create something which the reader could relax into and absorb, and then make up their own stuff based on that.
Yeah.
Whereas in this notable locations bit under the guard, we've gone for a bit more like, here's a plot.
Yeah, and I mean, once you've read a couple of them, then you can create your own on-theme locations. I'm
also like interested. I'm also like I'm thankful that you let me get the High Moon gag through. In that High Moon are full of gun-toting officers in the works, and it just sounds like High Noon. But
I think it was fine.
Well, thank you. But like, that's the sort of thing which you're there to catch.
Yeah, no,
that's in the book.
It.
Okay. Talk to us about the Hive.
So the Hive is the main jail.
It's named after our university's cafe.
Yes, coincidentally, is the main jail for Spire, and it's for the true dangerous criminals.
Yeah,
but also for the sort of criminals that they want to interrogate and experiment on. Think of it like Arkham Asylum in Batman.
Yeah, but darker.
And with the ability to eject cells.
Yeah, you can just eject the cells and they'll fall down a couple of hundred stories.
They just drop hundreds of stories down into the corpse pits.
I like to imagine that like they definitely haven't done that for like 30 years. And so there's a lot of people that built their houses underneath.
Yeah, but they still have the option.
Yeah.
So it's for the very, very dangerous people. So like if they capture blood witches and want to study them, that's where they'll put them.
Null demonologists,
that sort of thing.
A rogue warrior poet, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so if you want to do a campaign based around a certain person having skills or knowledge you need, stick them in the Hive, and you've got yourself a jailbreak situation.
Because all you need to do is like get in, then fit parachutes to the top.
Yeah, just eject it and ride it down.
That'd be kind of neat, actually.
That would be amazing.
But yeah, we didn't want to. I think the city guard. We wanted to give them the option of being human, but we didn't want them to be like power players, I suppose.
No.
Almost have them as more of an environmental threat.
Yeah, for sure.
However, on the subject of power players, the army.
Yes, the army is a power player.
The first thing we came up with was General Snow on Stone, and I'm really glad with the art. That's I think one of the only art we sent back for a full revision in pieces of art.
It did look like a spaceman.
It looked really cool, but it looked a bit like Boba Fett, and we were like, that's Boba Fett. That's not really General Snow on Stone. I like the fact that General Snow on Stone. I'm not sure what they are.
No,
they're they say they're an Elfir, and I think I like to think they're a clockwork robot in big stone armor, but I don't know what they are.
No.
They're the general, and they're weird,
and they're very good at their job.
Yes, very much so. I can't honestly imagine having a campaign which hits the level where you get to fuck around with Snow on Stone.
No, but like I felt the Defence Force needed a leader.
Yeah,
it needed a high point of command for the armies, and for if you want to do military style campaigns, you need somebody to almost be afraid of at the top. Yeah,
for sure, and it's useful to have a human face or a mask in this case,
or a completely dehumanized face.
Yeah, a completely dehumanized face. And we go on and we mention some of the different units. The idea is that the Elfir themselves are fairly rare. Like you're unlikely to see more than 100 Elfir in the same place. And instead, like they have a great deal of like indentured servants for Drow and hired human mercenaries called Jaegers.
Jaeger mercenaries.
Who are good at their job. and go and shoot things. And that's the majority of those, and they're all fighting off to the south. We wanted those battles to the south to exist, but not to have too much time spent on them, because that's not what the game's about.
Yeah,
definitely.
We didn't want to draw focus.
Yeah, we are interested in writing about that at some point in the future, because I think there's some really fun stories to be told there.
Yeah.
But instead, we've sort of had we wanted to think more of like, how can this influence the city? What sort of, or like, if you get out of the military, what's following you into the city? Hence the Special Tactics Corps.
Yes, with their conduits.
I shorten that to Spectac, which you don't like.
I hate. No, I hate that.
They have conduits, as we mentioned in the academia section. The Spectac do demonology. They have warrior poets, which are I think it's the highest rank you can get before general. Or actually, it's more like Jedi, I guess.
Yeah, that's probably a better way of looking at it.
In that you have the Imperial forces, and then you've got these robed space wizards who rock up and get to tell people what to do. And warrior poets it's from another game of mine, Warrior Poet, which I think legally takes place in the same universe. I think all my games take place in the same universe.
Goblin Quest off to one corner.
Yeah, definitely. Goblin Quest's down there. There's a war. There's orcs somewhere on this planet. But Warrior Poet is a game. It's a game where the main mechanic is competitive haiku writing, which makes that's a very niche audience.
I'm sure it's very good, but I can't write haikus. So,
no, it's fair. Yeah,
especially not on the fly competitively.
And so the warrior poets are kind of these mystics who have a great power in Elfir society. They have scalds, and so like scalds are trainee warrior poets, which are, I think, I'm going to say 95% just war dancers from Warhammer.
Yeah, they're alarmingly close.
But I mean, like, Warhammer nicked it from the Celts, so we're fine. Yes. We're okay. That's your sort of...
We're legally distinct.
Yeah, like your posh, rough, drug-taken guys with scarves who eviscerate people. And these warrior poets know the trick of singing a demonological mimetic virus into you, and then use you as a conduit for a bomb.
Like the powers we talked about when we spoke about the extra advances.
Mm. Yeah, the sight and conduit, and like the conduits are interesting. Like, I can see them being used against you, and I'd be very interested in having players use them.
Yes.
Like, and like there are rules for doing that in the Black Magic supplement, mainly because like it's not the sort of thing I'd recommend that a group does, just from like a moral point of view.
Yes, no, it is very white phosphorus.
Yeah, very much like white phosphorus, but also it drives you mad.
Yeah, it's a war crime.
It's a war crime, and I don't have anything else to say.
Very well.
What about the council, though?
So the council are very interesting because that's the kind of top tier taking back the spire level you can reach.
Your objective, as it were.
Yeah, in the kind of... If you imagine the base arc of a spire campaign, it is take on lower districts, move up the spire, eventually do something with the council. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of the meta plot for it. I mean, most campaigns won't do that.
No,
they'll be more focused.
It'll be like take down this particular thing, but I like certainly thinking like of tying an adventure to someone on the council.
Yes,
and then like whether or not they know that they're doing it, it's like they're responsible for these actions. So when you take someone down, you can then work out who they replaced it with, who that upsets, etc.
Yeah. So it's one of the few places where we've detailed every member of a faction. Yeah.
I think every single one of them is part of a conspiracy.
Yes, they are.
Aside from the midwife.
Who is there as a token.
Yeah.
And doesn't have a lot of power, but I love that she's there, and the human.
Yeah.
As well.
Drin. Castleman Drin.
To give it some sort of multicultural feel, but
yeah,
through
for sure.
obligation,
a
rather
token
than,
multicultural feel, and the Druin's bought his way onto the council, and the Drow, Madame Faye Arignan, has no power whatsoever, and is simply there to say, "Look, you're on the council. How nice are we?"
Yeah, and it's just to placate the Drow. But I like to think that she does have some power in the background.
Yeah, I mean, like she's one of the most powerful Drow in Spire.
Yeah,
for sure. I think like what the interaction would be with her is convincing her to do that.
Yes,
and using her for access, like getting her to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and maybe changing the way she votes rather than potentially voting out of fear and just going along with things. Like, so actually stand up and say no.
Yeah, I think I got to give my favourite piece of art direction in this, which is on the bottom right. There is the warrior poet, Captain Wanderlost, who is a hopelessly depressed warrior poet, and has become hooked on blue, the drug which makes Elfir capable of feeling sadness. And I got to give Adrian Stone the art direction. It was like, I want you to do like a wizard, but very glam and Napoleonic. Just
he did that.
He did perfect. That. Yeah, pretty glam. I like it. I really like One of the Lost as far as characters go, because like there's a real easy hook there.
Yeah. When you've got somebody who's a drug addict,
they're not. One of the Lost doesn't have a conspiracy behind them. I think almost everyone else does. Like they're infected with tiny parasitic spores, or they're dedicated to an evil murder cult, or they're in fact running Red Row, that sort of thing. But Captain Wanderlust just really sad.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that we've kind of accidentally given him plots in some of the...
It's them.
Them.
Yeah.
Plots in the Kings of Silver adventure line by having their sister
as a major player,
and as a political wannabe.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting challenge. Like we were chatting with this we're chatting about this off air earlier this week. Like, because Spire changes, there's a desire to sort of update the council or update the goings on with every new thing we write. And so, like, on one hand, that's really cool, but on the other hand, we don't want to invalidate the previous stuff.
Yeah.
Nor do I want to have it to stay precisely as it is. And I think that there's some fun. There's something to be found there.
Yeah, and I think things like adventure supplements are a good place to change that.
Yeah. I also, just before we end this chapter, I want to talk about the original Spire, because this is snuck into the Order section.
Yeah.
The idea that the Spire is organic is something which we've been playing with for a while, and like a lot of stuff, we're not prepared to say whether it's real or not because we don't know. But the idea that I certainly have it in that the Spire grows and regrows and heals wounds, but at the rate of decades.
Yeah.
It's tectonic grade. You know, we're talking hundreds of years. And I really like how weird that is.
Yes.
I like how unpleasant the idea is that the walls are alive, but like the city's so big and alive, you're living in it, and it like you're like a parasite to it. You're like an infection. And
it's because the council is in one of the true original parts of the Spire.
Yeah.
They don't have anything built around it. It's just as it's described here, the original bone rock of Spire.
Yeah. And again, super vague about what that looks like.
Yep, try and say as vague as possible on some things.
Definitely. Evocative, that's the word I like to use.
Oh, that's the word, yeah.
Not vague, evocative.
Sorry, my bad.
Let's move on to religion.
Let's go to religion.
This is the longest section of the book.
By quite a big margin.
This is significantly longer than the combat section.
Yes. This
is religion. Welcome to it. Chris and I think religion is cool.
Mm-hmm. And a key part of Spire.
So we just jammed as much of it as we could into Spire. And I think there's for me, when you look at fantasy and you look at when there's cities, there's religion.
Yeah.
Because like religion allows people to come together under a united banner, and then from that you develop economies of scale, and also you develop we should build a giant big thing to make God happy, and to scare the other non-believers. And so you end up with cathedrals, and you end up with like I again not a huge fan of religion in the flesh, but I do like a cathedral.
Oh yes.
Or a basilica. Absolutely adore that. And so we went hog wild with the religion. We tripled down, if you can do such a thing. And let's start off with our glorious lady, which was the second god we came up with. It was the Temple Dexter.
Yes.
The right hand
forget
temple.
Those old names.
Yes, our glorious lady. Talk to us about that, Chris.
So this is very much the home of the ministry, and
Nope.
Is it not?
That's our hidden mistress,
which is underneath the.
Oh right, okay, yeah, sure, carry on.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought. Well, it's not. Start again. My apologies.
Okay, so the Cathedral of our Glorious Lady is very much the home of the ministry, which is hidden underneath.
Right.
But the cathedral itself gets some space because we needed to talk about the religion.
Yeah.
Rather than the conspiracy.
And like the allowed religion of our glorious lady.
Yeah, because the Aelfir have decreed that certain religions are verboten.
Mm-hmm.
And
I believe there are 11, and we've detailed 4.
As I want.
Yep.
And this gave us some space to really talk about that and to focus on how the cathedral itself runs.
Yeah. And how it's adapted, and another thing which I'm really into, I'm not sure whether Chris is things built on top of other things.
Yeah,
and whether that's like stuff actually built on top, or built around, or like built on the ruins of something else. I've always thought that was incredible, like to have visible history in your buildings, and like sort of make do and mend and jury rig stuff always fascinated me. And so we made the cathedral really run down. Mainly because the Aelfir have been throttling the money to repair it. So there's still a large drow faction who worship here, but they don't have the money to keep this huge, like what would have been the greatest cathedral in all of, I suppose, Drowry?
Yeah, Drowdom.
Drowdom, what would have been the greatest cathedral in all of the Drow nations, has now just crumbled down and has been built and rebuilt, and so it's like everything else in Spire. It's now a nightmare labyrinth.
Patched together nonsense.
Yeah, and having the reclaimers, the maintainers who go out and nick it.
Yeah,
you were saying you wanted to talk about the art.
So I love this piece of art because it shows off how run down and scaffolding clad. The cathedral is, but also it's the inside of another picture. Because
it's the inside of Derelictus.
This picture is from Derelictus picture from the other side.
Okay, that's kind of nice. So it's not technically of the place, but it shows you how it works.
Yeah, and it shows, like, the Derelictus picture shows you how dominating the cathedral is, and how important it is. And this picture then shows you that enormous facade is home to what looks like a tumble dryer.
It's got like they're pumping something out, and they've got a load of books there all around the statue. I also, like, while we're here, I want to talk about the 6 Dark Elf virtues.
Please do.
Now these were an attempt I had at stats a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because like we've cut stats from the game. We used to have them, in like iterations 7, 8, and 9 or what have you. And I, rather than having strength, dexterity, constitution, your standard 6 D&D ones, I wanted to have different stats to tell different stories. Yeah. And the main one I had was grace. If there's one thing that elves are, it's graceful, in that they move smoothly and accurately. And I wanted to toy with the idea of grace, and then sort of like from that we span out a few more, and eventually I came to tenacity, community, grace, vigilance, sagacity, and fury, in an attempt to have these aren't strictly humans.
Yes,
you're dealing with
their
here.
codes are different.
Yeah, they're human-like, and hopefully this is something which you can inhabit as a person, and will give you the tools you need to get into that. And also, if you just want to play them as normal humans with normal human virtue, as it were, or human, but it's like a traditional set of virtues which you understand, that's just going to work fine. And yeah, they didn't work as stats, but we've divided them up between the goddesses in terms of which the Trinity focus on, and I think that they've worked very well to sort of weird it up a bit.
Yeah, and also, I mean, they'll come into play later with the mystery.
Yes.
And so they served more purpose than being thrown on the side, like so much of our other rules.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I think if we ever get anything which really works, it sticks around.
Yeah, it sticks around for a very long time.
Not in terms of like really works in terms of mechanics, but with the Dark Elf virtues, we both agreed that there's something evocative there. There's something cool there. What are we going to do with them? And there's lots of things where we've folded them back in, or we've taken them and we've cut bits out, we've added bits in, just to sort of make everything plug together. And I suppose they're darlings in a way, which we haven't killed.
I guess, but when they work, they work.
Yeah, I'm also not entirely down with the idea of killing my darlings, because I really like my darlings.
Hence.
Yeah, precisely. Hence them being my darlings. I think that there's a... In terms of writing, I think, if we're talking about the craft here, we should probably mention this. I've never quite been down with the idea of killing my darlings, because I think there's something in that which goes into the... it's quite a brisk... sharp way of writing, and it encourages, and it's like the sort of I turn to my desk every day and I drink 3 pints of coffee and eat a pack of cigarettes and I write 8 hours a day and I have a half-hour break to go and yell at a dog for lunch, and it's that sort of grinding out the work, and there's something fairly joyless about that, and like I think that's great if you're Stephen King and you're turning out enormous books with an eye to a broad audience.
And 14 books a year.
Yeah, precisely. Whereas I quite like taking great pleasure in this stuff and like to write to sort of come at it from an idea of poetry in a way. In like the core idea of poetry is not to be about something, but to make beautiful words hang out together. Mm-hmm. And I think that we can take concepts and make beautiful concepts hang out together and put nice words around them and have nice turns of phrase. And like, if the rest of the book moves on and that turn of phrase really can't survive, then fine, kill it, get rid of it. But I don't think that you should be as harsh as perhaps some people tell you to be.
You should be prepared to kill your darlings.
Yeah, like nothing is sacred, I think, is there. Like there should be nothing that you can't remove.
Yeah.
Everything. What's the advice in Apocalypse World? Drive your NPCs like stolen cars.
Yeah.
Like nothing is too big to be removed. And like, I think there's a few constants which we now couldn't pull out of Spire. Looking back on it, like I wouldn't like the churches, the setups. Anyway, moving on. Hallows, or saints
of our glorious lady, including an Aelfir.
Yeah. Hallow Heart's breath halting.
Yeah.
Now, I have a problem with Hallows.
Yes, you do.
Because it sounds like hello, and so Hello D sounds a bit like Hello Kitty, or like Hello Ambra, Hello Kitty, Hello
and now
Hippo.
Everybody listening to this can't get that out of their head, and you've ruined it for them.
Well, maybe they already thought that.
No, it was just you.
I think that it distance it away from saints.
Yes,
a little bit, and I like the idea. Again, I mentioned earlier that that I was looking into. I went to Italy and was looking at like the banned worship of saints, and I like the idea that these are banned, and so that you'll have private shrines to these at home. But also like really easy for the GM to come up with some more.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, piss easy. If you just want to make it all about saints. Oh, what about a game where we all played the reincarnations of saints?
Right.
That'd be cool.
That'd be solid.
Oh, nice.
And it was a nice place for us to drop in just some extra advances. Just Just
Yeah.
plonk them in.
Just like, I think it's the only bit where there's rules in,
Yeah.
in the fiction guide. But it's that, so we've been writing High Society, and we've been interested in getting rules, but also like getting the fiction across. And we wanted to have those both. So rather than listing Hallow D and everything that Hallow D did, or Hallow Heart's Breath Halting, to have a paragraph about them and then almost an equal-sized paragraph of rules. Because really, if you give people rules, that's 10 times as useful as fiction.
Yeah, and it
Because they
infers
can take
a lot
that and plug
about
it. Precisely.
about the Hallow themselves, as how their blessings manifest.
Yeah, and like why this is important to the Drow, why this is important to the Vlajan and the priests of our glorious lady, and we can say that in mechanical terms, which is the way in which you can understand the world, and that was really important to us.
Yeah.
Now, the longest section in the book, the Ministry of our Hidden Mistress, the important bit.
Yes.
The paramilitary cult of murderers, seditionists, and liars who you have sworn allegiance to before the game starts.
Or potentially in your prologue, or first
yeah.
game.
But it is assumed that everyone has joined the Hidden Mistress. And I'm quite happy about the naming strictures.
Yes.
Like, I think like our glorious lady was kind of a placeholder, or it was something else that they called her, and that slowly fell in just to be what they called her. I think the actual name is Limier.
Limier, L'Ombre, and Le Collet.
Yeah. Or Light, Shadow, and I believe it's Fire or Rage. I forget what the translation of Le Collet is. But the Ministry of our Hidden Mistress is a rebellion organization, a rebellious organization who is entirely legal to join. And I think you can definitely see like, as I mentioned earlier, many episodes ago in this commentary, you can see the influence of Dark Heresy and the Inquisition as a inspiring factor for me, because the cell structure is very similar to Inquisition cell structure.
Yeah.
I think we tried to have a bit more. We tried to make them a bit less outright evil than the Inquisition in 40k, because they're not the good guys. There aren't any good guys in 40k.
Yeah, I mean, the solution in this is not always burn it to the ground.
Yes,
sometimes
precisely.
you can use it.
Yes, and that's the thing. That depends on the Inquisition member as well. I don't want to run roughshod over the fluff of Warhammer, hallowed be its name. But we wanted to get a bit more focused as well. Like, this is a cult within a city rather than a galaxy-spanning organization.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the art here.
Okay.
They are on page 100 and... Oh, actually, we don't know what page it'll be on. But the art of the shrine of our hidden mistress. Adrian has absolutely nailed it. Absolutely gorgeous. I adore this, and I love the way that you make a shrine to the hidden mistress by making your own murder board with red string.
Yep.
Like it's like the sort of, it was to film a glorious mind, in which what's his name? Australian guy, big lad, gladiator.
Are you sure it's called A Glorious Mind? Brilliant Mind?
A beautiful mind.
Beautiful Mind. There we go.
Beautiful mind. That's the one. A beautiful mind. What's his name though? Russell Crowe.
Yeah, that's the one.
Russell Crowe isn't quite right in the head, and is delusional, and makes this huge conspiracy board. And I saw that and was like, I want that.
One, please.
I'll have that, please. And just the idea that this isn't sane. What you're doing, this isn't sensible.
No.
I was reading a piece on rock paper shotgun. This is relevant, I promise you. Over the last couple of days, it was an interview with Mike Pondsmith, the guy who developed Cyberpunk, the role playing game Cyberpunk 2020, and he's involved as a consultant on the Project Red, the new game which is coming out. And someone described the game as it's feeling very cyberpunk. And one of the things about cyberpunk is that they're generally the heroes who get into it. I say heroes, the anti-heroes, the protagonists. They're onto a losing battle. Like, they generally can't do the thing they're setting out to do. It's like they take on huge and insurmountable problems which they know they can't solve. And I think the Ministry of our Hidden Mistress has done that.
Yeah.
And the fact that their shrines are murder boards is like, actually, this isn't something which a normal person is going to do. This isn't a sensible and sane decision to make to join this. You're not normal.
This will lead to your death.
Yeah, you will die for this at some point or another. You will die, and it will be because of this. If you're not, like you will not die in your bed, as it were.
Yeah.
Recruitment. This is another bit where I wrote stuff and Chris didn't stop me. Or actually, no, sorry, that isn't true. Chris wrote down the ideas for the initiation, and then I span them out.
Yeah, and the initiation is wonderful because if you want to, you can have your players answer these questions that each of the rites poses before the game, and it can really inform your campaign.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just take the first one, the Rite of Tenacity. What thought kept you alive down amid the dead?
Yeah. And
like what's the one burning thing that kept you alive? Was it the fight against Elfir? Probably not.
And that's along with the bonds. I think that's kind of a really fun first session to have that session 0 where you do the bonds, but also you do the initiation, and you do like, well, where did you meet? Like, have you met before? Have you met during the initiation? Do you know each other? And to explore what their bonds are, and then so like. We've mainly been like the way we've mainly played Spire up until now is that like certainly for the last 6 months we've been like, we take the playtested adventures or the sample adventures which we write up and then playtest them through to make sure they work.
Yeah.
Whereas the traditional way which I run a campaign, and which is what I do if I ran a game of Spire now, would be to sit down with the players, say, well, what characters are you interested in playing? Here's a story I'm interested in telling. Work together with them to work out what their bonds are, who they're interested in fighting, what sort of stories they're interested in telling, and go through like the initiation rites and the bonds with them. And then at the end of session 0, then I know what I'm doing. Then I know what the conspiracy is, and the players have informed that, and these are really useful for that.
Yeah, I'm huge fan of these all the way through.
Yeah, and I think like we have certainly for Chris and I, we have a desire. I think there's almost a slight level of nervousness in that we want we want to finish campaigns.
Yes, we never wanted to be halfway through.
No, because like I've had more campaigns sputter out than I have complete.
Yeah,
and like not just running, but also being in. Most campaigns that I've been in have just stopped rather than coming to a satisfying conclusion. And that's a common way in which role playing games sputter out. And I think that and if you look at Unbound, the previous game which we released, that's specifically designed to run 4 to 6 sessions. Like short arcs, and then you explicitly stop that, make new characters in the same world and carry on exploring.
Yeah,
and I think that because Chris and I'm getting better at it. I'm learning to trust to myself and learning to trust my own GMing and learning to trust that my players are having a good time and I'm having a good time. When I play Spire, I wouldn't focus on the initiation. On the community aspect, I'd have it come fast and hard and make everything happen all at once, and not give the players time to breathe. So they're always engaged and they're always under pressure. And then because you can't maintain that level of intensity, stop it after 5 or 6 games. And I think that if you want to have a year-long game of Spire, you really fucking could.
Yeah.
You certainly wouldn't have the same crew at the start as you would at the end because people are going to die.
It is a brutal game.
Yeah, you're running a playtest where your players had their first proper fight.
Had their first proper fight, and 2 people went down. One in the position of being dead.
Yeah, it was thankfully saved by a god of nihilism.
Yeah.
So you're fine. Yeah,
didn't come out any better, but still,
no, but alive legally.
But that was a couple of chaps with some planks of wood. That wasn't a trained military.
Yeah, I think I certainly think there's the capacity to have a longer Spire game, and it's going to come out of community. It's going to come out of NPCs having problems needing you to solve. It's going to come out of recruitment efforts. It's going to come out of having these bonds and almost like leveling up these bonds and combining bonds so you can do greater and greater things.
Yeah,
having the story feedback into itself.
One of the big things to remember is that you can combine bonds. I don't think we mentioned it when we were in there. Is that if you've got two bonds of the same level in the same area, you can combine them together to make a street level one.
Yes.
And the idea is that you can then go all the way up to city level bonds.
Having the same people, as it were, as they get more important.
Yeah. And city level bonds are incredibly strong.
No, they just do the thing.
Yeah. So one thing I would like to talk about that's in this initiation section is the hierarchy of the Ministry of our Hidden Mistress.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
This came about because somebody on the Discord asked us, what's the hierarchy of the Ministry?
It was Chad, actually. It was the guy who wrote the book about the Ministry.
Oh, yeah.
It was Chad Walker, author of Cryptomancer, who did us a splat book very kindly.
And we didn't know.
We had
no idea.
We had Minister, because we thought, and again, coming from our standard naming, what's the word? Conventions, I thought Minister sounded really cool.
Yep.
Or like saying, fuck, it's the Ministry. That sounded like a really good thing for a baddie to say.
Yeah. And we had Magister as the one that was above you.
Yeah, your cell, not leader, but coordinator. And then we had nothing else.
Yeah, so that's where the Exarch, Oracles, Weaver, and the Mistress then came from.
It was really fun because they make less and less sense the more you go up.
Yeah, they're more indistinct and more plot pointy as you go up.
Yeah, I think we had. I think I took out. I'm not sure whether it's still in the book. We don't really have time to read it now. But I put in some theories as to who the Mistress was.
I don't think they're still in here.
I quite like the idea that I think we had either it's the goddess herself, or it's an Elfir.
Yeah.
Like, it's an Elfir who's really pissed off with the other Elfir.
And you're just another scheme for them.
Yeah, but that would be sickening to discover that.
Yeah.
Absolutely horrendous. And I'm not sure I'd want to pull that rug out from under the players. But again, kind of cool to be to get to the level of the Mistress, and like everything else in Spire, just a person.
Yeah. Or,
probably a wizard, but just a person. So you strangle them, and now you have to act as them and run the Ministry.
Or even you've been called to meet the Mistress. Oh, fantastic! Yeah, you just head to the council chambers.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, that'd be pretty grim, wouldn't it? You see, that's the sort of thing. Like the other interesting thing about this is that Chris and I don't like games with betrayal in. I don't mind NPCs betraying you, but I hate it when PCs betray each other.
Yeah.
Or when ooh, who can we really trust? Oh, come on, let's just trust each other. Yeah, that sounds like fun. And generally, that's why you might know the game doesn't really have rules for PvP in it.
No.
There's no rules for hurting other players because don't. Just don't.
It's not worth it.
It's not a game about that. Just get on, eh? And I'm sure you could hack some together. It wouldn't be too hard.
Yeah. You can still screw each other over.
Yeah, for sure.
That's fine, but you can't directly stab another person because it's
I think it wouldn't be too hard to sort.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. But we haven't put rules in because we're not interested in telling that story. And I could see a different group of people writing this game with definitely having that.
Yeah.
Definitely having, everyone in this group is an undercover agent for someone else. There's an undercover paladin, an undercover city guard, an undercover Crimson Vigilite, and it turns out no one, everyone here is an agent provocateur.
There's literally nothing to investigate.
Which I like, which is fun. I've done, I run Paranoia. I wrote Paranoia, the most recent edition, and one of my favourite things to do is to have an internal security member making up every single member of the cell, and you don't tell them, and so the main job of InSec is to encourage traitorous behaviour from people who might otherwise not do it, so they can draw it out, and they all just very carefully start encouraging everyone into doing traitorous behaviour whilst having Cup largely do it themselves, which is tremendous fun. Anyway, that's off topic. I think that there's certainly an interesting game you could have, toying around with the hierarchy and turning the Ministry back on itself. Yeah. That's not a story which I really feel qualified to tell, I think. I don't feel like that's a game which I'd run, and I felt like it was difficult for me to write it.
But nevertheless, an interesting avenue for
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think like there might be a splat book there. I'm not sure. I want to keep it really weird and vague, though.
Yeah, the right amount of vague.
Yeah, what's the right amount of vague? I don't want to say, okay, here's everyone in the Ministry and here's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I want it to be absolutely confusing and no one knows what's happening. Even like the one thing I've learned growing up is that no one knows what's going on
At any point.
Everyone's just making up as they go along all the time, and I like even spies.
Then I think we could quite happily do a chapter exclusively about the Mistress and not say a single fact.
That's true. Yeah, just like legends of the Mistress.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Crimson Vigil.
Yeah. Okay.
They were a late addition to the game. As we mentioned in the Vermissian chapter, they arose out of a station in the Vermissian where they drowned people, and then everything sort of grew out of hand, and now they've really come in. They're one of the major antagonists in the game.
Yeah, but they're interesting in that they're not necessarily antagonists.
No, they want the same thing.
Yeah, they want exactly the same thing that you do. However, they're willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, and also I think just organizationally, they're less subtle about that. The minute the ministry will sell you out if it works for them by giving you false information and having it so you get captured and then you break and then you give that false information to the enemies and then they take advantage of that. And the Crimson Vigil will not sell you out, but they will equip you and 30 other people with shitty guns and have you charge a guard post.
Yep. Or they'll give you bombs.
Yes, bombs, fire, burning braziers. I wrote a weapons book for Spire. I wrote a list of weapons for Spire, which we're chopping up and putting all around the place. And the Vigilites have prayer cannons, which are really high caliber pistols, and they have a really distinctive noise, which is kind of like a call to prayer for the Vigil.
Yeah.
And they are veering towards camp.
They are the sledgehammer to the Ministry's scalpel.
Yes, precisely. I like them. I like playing them. They're really fun because they've evolved into something which is just like which you show to the players and going like, how are you different? What are you doing which is different from this? And if you're not doing anything different, why aren't you on the same side?
Yeah, and I mean that's how I use them in my games as background more than foreground, as that kind of mirror. Like you've done terrible things, sure, but you saved these people doing that.
Yeah,
these people haven't saved those people; they've caused more problems.
Yeah, and we also got to talk about radicalization.
Yeah,
because ostensibly the Ministry are in inverted commas the good guys. They're the protagonists. They're doing bad things for good reasons, and it's difficult because zealous religion, radical religion, is the cause for a great deal of terror and sadness and unpleasantness in the real world. And I think we wanted to talk about that a little bit. And I think by portioning that out to the Crimson Vigil, you have the Ministry is professional enough and espionage enough that it almost feels like the state.
Yeah,
it's almost like the home nations still working to take over Spire in a professional, sneaky way, and the Crimson Vigil that's along the line of your suicide bombers, your mass shootings, your people who have been pushed down on for so long that eventually they break and they want to make an impression anywhere they can. They do it with violence and unpleasantness, and that is, I think, portioning that out to a non-player character, or certainly something which the player characters can join, but it's not default.
Yeah, it gives us that it's not default.
Yeah, it gives us room to talk about that. It gives us room to play with those ideas. This has been quite a long section. Should we put in a break there?
Yeah, let's put in a break there. Religion Part 2, Pilgrim's Walk et al., recorded by Grant Howitt and Christopher Taylor.
What a lovely intro, Christopher Taylor.
Thank you.
Pilgrim's Walk. What is it? Where is it? Why is it? Who is it? And how is it?
Who even knows?
We do.
Yeah.
We wrote it.
As does anybody reading the book. Pilgrim's Walk is...
And the wheels are really coming up towards the end of the thing, aren't they?
We've done an hour on religion so far.
That's true, yeah.
Pilgrim's Walk is a kind of grab bag of all of the different religions packed into one area.
I think we wanted a low society religion place.
And we also wanted to kind of nail down the cosmopolitan craziness of all these different cultures coming together and all these different religions mingling and offshoots and cults and all sorts of stuff.
The description that I give of Pilgrim's Walk is when you walk down Brick Lane in London, every curry house has a dude outside saying, "Hey, you want some curry? You want to come here? You want to come for some curry? It's good and cheap." I just wanted that, but for gods. Yeah,
I mean, it's most summed up with the collection of religions currently active in Pilgrim's Walk, where there's just a huge list.
Yeah, that was fun. I like making up religions.
Yeah.
The Temple Furious.
The Heralds of Mordagon.
Mondragon, I think, isn't it?
No, Mordagon.
Mordagon. Oh yeah, it is Mordagon.
I like the Daitoshian iconoclasts.
Thank you very much.
It's beautiful to say.
Well, like the pair of us sat down. I think that was about 20 minutes work, just yelling at each other. And then the real thing is here's a piece of game design advice. If you do this, make sure to rearrange them, otherwise it will really show. Like if you just come up with a list of 40 names, then your thought patterns will show in that. So make sure to rearrange those in some way. Unlike
what we did.
No, we rearranged them. Very good. I really love the art of Pilgrim's Walk.
Yes.
It's absolutely gorgeous. It's a bit cyberpunky.
Yeah, it is a little bit.
It's one of the ones we had to have a few revisions on, because Addy made it much more sci-fi to start with. In fact, like Adrian's vision of Spire seems to be much more sci-fi than ours. We communicated to him like it was brutalist, and he stepped that up and he's made it like there's a lot of glowing neon and stuff. And so we wanted to let him draw what he saw it as and what he wanted to draw, but also I think there was an element of like, yeah, but it is fantasy though.
Yeah.
Can you put a candle in?
Remember, orcs and goblins.
Well, that was I really love the Pilgrim's Row. I think in as much as like the heart is a place where the occult can come out of.
Yeah.
Pilgrim's Walk is a place where you can get any religion you want,
and you can buy almost anything religious you want.
Yes, definitely. Like it seems like a natural place to be. I can imagine like you could probably get a really interesting firebrand coming out of Pilgrim's Walk.
Yeah,
like a multi-pantheonist leading the fight for the good fight. I think that could be a really pleasant one.
Well, there's George.
Oh, there's George. Kickstarter backers entry.
Yeah, one of the rubes.
I think there's only 2 rubes. Oh no, there's 3 rubes in the book, I think.
Yeah, and George is one of them, and George has joined every cult on Pilgrim's Row.
And he knows some things. I think if there's any bit I'm actually interested in exploring more, it's Pilgrim's Walk.
Yeah.
Because there's like the whole thing is like a tinderbox. There's so much going on. And I'm really excited to try and get more weirdness in there, get more factions in there. I think you could have an entire game set in Pilgrim's Walk, and I'd love to play that.
I think that's the thing the thing we tried to do with every district is to make it so that you could play a whole campaign here, and that'd be okay.
Yeah, with a bit of work, yeah. And similarly, like I like having possibly supporting churches the same way you'd support gangs of rebel insurgents, and taking over Pilgrim's Walk by being the power behind the throne. Next up, we've got the Solar Basilica,
which is the home of the paladins. And the Elfir religion.
So the Elfir religion, that was. I don't think we really defined that until fairly late on. We knew it existed, and we knew we wanted a something called the Solar Basilica. But then, like, to work out what I think we had them kind of like as like generic sort of pagan sun cult going on for a while.
Yeah.
And then we thought we'd slap some faces on the gods because that's what we're into. And so we have a 4-part seasonal family, as it was.
Yeah, because
as it were,
part of that
is
calling back to the fact that the Aelfir live very differently up in the north.
Yeah.
So we wanted something that kind of reflected that in their religion.
And also, I think to have it where, like, to draw some parallels, because it's like the light side and dark side of the moon and the blood moon, there's similar rhythms and patterns there. Sorry? Facets. Yeah, certainly. As far as the gods go, we want to think about, like, how the Aelfir view themselves and how, like, because, you know, inevitably all gods are invented by people.
Yeah.
And so how the Aelfir justify themselves, how the Aelfir feel they get their mastery, their beauty, their grace, that sort of thing. And taking those facets and then embodying them in different gods was kind of fun to do that. I think the other thing that is weird about them is the avatars.
Yeah.
Whereas up in north, high elves can summon gods to their bodies, and it says here, take husbands and wives. Take them round the back of the bike sheds, if you know what I mean.
Aye, wink, wink.
Yeah. We decided not to have that happen in Spire, because it felt like that would be the end of every fucking campaign.
Yes.
And also, like, it seemed cruel to have the one thing which you couldn't do be incredibly powerful and racially bound.
Yeah.
That wasn't a hugely fun story we wanted to tell, so instead we've got it that it works up north, and also, you know, it's probably not actually happening at all. They're probably just taking a load of drugs.
But it's super interesting that they can't summon their avatars here in Spire.
Yeah. And of course, I mean, and that gives you the option, like, to say, oh, it turns out one person can do it. Why is that? What are they doing?
Yeah, or you can explore why they can't, why their gods, if
is
real,
Spire doing something?
Yeah, are cut off with Spire.
Yeah,
and yet the Drow gods will not manifest, but divine magic manifests.
Yeah, I think as well. The paladins sort of arose naturally because we needed some villains. We needed some proper antagonists.
We needed something that could handle the really dangerous,
the biggest, baddest mofos available.
Yeah,
and like they've got better armor than everyone in the game. They've got better guns than everyone in the game. They're the most difficult thing in the city to fight. The idea is that you just don't.
Yeah.
They are almost entirely over-leveled. Honestly, I think a cell would struggle to take down one.
Yeah, I mean, as I've described in earlier sections, I've seen parties get dropped by a man with a plank of wood.
Yeah.
Like, that's possible, and these people are built from the ground up to kill you.
Yeah. We wanted to give GMs the capacity just to have just to say no, as it were, and not in a oh well, your character wouldn't do that, or oh, I don't fancy this, but just like if your players turn up, if your players cause enough trouble, then the paladins show up and sort things out.
Yeah, I mean, some severe shadow fallout. A paladin is tasked.
Yes, precisely. We've also got the Sun on Earth, which I forgot we wrote.
I do like it though. Like, it's an extra plot point.
They're building a replica sun.
Yep.
Yeah, bit of fun. Why not? Let's talk about New Heaven.
Yes, New Heaven, the home of the Carrion Priests.
Yeah, we've set a lot of games in New Heaven. I've set 2 or 3 up there.
Yeah, it's because it's an interesting open air area.
I love the place. I love the soundtrack for it on tabletop audio. It was gorgeous. It's got the sound of fluttering prayer flags and cawing crows. And you get to describe so we mentioned this in the Morticians, where we have 2 rival death cults, and the one which came second is the Eaters of the Dead, the Carrion Priests, and we saw there's this fairly famous picture of this African man with a hyena on a leash.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was such an exciting image, such like there's something really intriguing about that. And then you saw a documentary.
Yeah, I saw a documentary where they feed wild hyenas from a bucket in the middle of town. Mm-hmm. And, like, that is so dangerous.
Yeah.
Just
hyenas,
so dangerous.
Yeah. They hunt as well as scavenge.
Yeah, but they do it to preserve the souls of the dead.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a beautiful image, where it's like,
from that,
please eat the souls of the dead so they can go on.
Yeah. Unless you eat unless you eat a dead body. And, like, I like to imagine that it's probably just, like, part of it. Or maybe the whole thing, I don't know.
I think it's only a very small piece.
It goes bad, and then ghosts happen, which also gives you like lots of opportunities to jam ghosts in there.
Yeah, there's a very good spectral campaign.
I'm entirely wrong. Sorry, the fluff is written. If you aren't eaten within a week of dying, they say your ghost goes bad, and the smell attracts demons, which gives you a good way to get hold of demons
and ghosts.
And ghosts. In terms of inspirations for this, and I don't want this director's commentary to just be here's where I stole everything from, but there's certainly it's certainly possible to draw inspirations from things. And there was a game called Over the Edge, written in '92, I think, by a young Robin D. Laws and Jonathan Tweet. And it was years ahead of its time in terms of doing story gaming and like brisk storytelling, narrative-focused stuff. Very clever game. The setting was very weird. It was like an island free of it was free of international police interference. So anything went there as long as the Queen said it was okay. And one of the districts they had, it was protected by baboons. There were swarms of baboons, some of whom had been experimented on to make them unusually intelligent, and that was their security. Swarms of nightmarish baboons. And if you've ever seen a baboon tear something apart, you can see
why.
Yeah, and so I always thought, like, I never really played Over the Edge, but I like the idea of these of wild packs of animals running down the streets, possibly led by someone. And the fact that New Haven is this necropolis, is the city of the dead, and it's fairly sparsely populated due to the fact that, one, it's outside, two, it's full of corpses, and three, there's superstitions around that.
Yeah,
I like the idea that it's one of the few places in Spire where there's this much solitude.
Yeah, it's one of the few places you can go on top of a building and actually be alone.
You could walk for 15 minutes and not meet anyone who wasn't a hyena.
Which is its own problem.
I think we had, like, we were talking how in certain parts the entrances to all the buildings are set up higher than a hyena can jump.
Yeah.
And the final thing about New Haven is the druidic chorus and the keepers of the hives.
Yeah.
Which I think developed into much more than it was. So it was kind of a throwaway mention. But I think Chris and I wanted to think about how druids would operate in a city.
Yeah, the sort of urban druid didn't quite.
No, it felt like everyone was playing an urban druid, you know?
Yeah.
Like, everyone's kind of a wizard and everyone's really urban. And so we wanted to think, like rather than taking druids and making them urban, we try and fit in the idea of druidism to the city. And so we had the idea of window box druids.
Yeah,
where they're keeping things tended, like they're fighting. They're not fighting against the city in as much as they're trying to build on top of it.
Yeah, and it also adds some nice contrast to the bees at the bottom of the spire.
Yes, as we were discussing, the idea that bees are structure, like our nature-based structure, interests us. And this wasn't really much at all until Tim drew the map. And then he had the bee druids on one side and the bird druids on the other side, and then arrows, and then a cease peck and a cease sting zone. And something like that for me, I was like, oh, okay. Oh, I get it now. That's fun. and it taken it out of being like these mysterious, secretive cults to people who have bird and bee wars on the streets. And again, both are canon. Ours is more canon. With all of this, we wanted religion to be a source of power. We wanted it to feed back into religion. Sorry, we wanted to feed back into magic and into power and into control and into society. Because I think like we didn't start off trying to tell the story, but we ended up telling it.
Yeah.
About control and about having technology in cyberpunk is religion inspire, or is magic inspire, and if you've got occultists who are sort of on the edge, who are the hackers, as it were, and the cyberpunks, then the religious characters in Inspire are more like they're authorized by the state in that respect.
Yeah, but there's also some elements of comfort there, like the community virtue.
Oh, for sure.
For the religion and the grondu that comes out of that, and just the fact that most characters are going to be religious in some fashion.
Yeah, I like that happened accidentally. We didn't sort of set out to make everyone really religious, but hey, we really like gods, and we really like talking about that. And I think the interesting thing about gods is what they give people license to do.
Yeah, and what they say about that person based on, especially in something like Spire, or who they revere.
Yeah, precisely. And so having that as a fundamental part of each character concept, aside from Knight and the occult classes, really meant that was hammered home. And I don't think we end up with I think the gods play fairly well together.
Yeah,
I've never seen anyone sort of do the whole, well, my god's better than your god sort of thing in a game of Spire, but maybe I just don't have dickish players, you know.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe I've chosen well. Let's move on.
Let's.
The Spire Director's Commentary podcast is a companion to the Spire RPG and features Grant Howitt and Chris Taylor. The music is by Arokia, hosted on freesound.org and used under the Creative Commons license. To learn more about Spire, explore related products or buy your own copy, go to rowanrookanddecard.com.